Hello everyone, welcome to the Barca Talk podcast. I'm your host, Gabriel in the Spanish capital. In today's show, we review last night's Valencia match where Barca showed some bright play as they beat Valencia 3-1. In today's episode, I speak with Craig McGeough as we speak Ansu, Sergio Roberto, and the week that's coming up with Champions League group stage and obviously the Clásico. Before we get into the match, just wanted to speak about VAR. Again, last night's penalty where Ansu created the penalty was an amazing run by Ansu. Obviously, having him back has definitely brought joy back to the Camp Nou. But again, there was another controversy because the ref did not look at VAR. Now, I don't know, many of you may know or may not know that I'm from San Francisco Bay Area and I'm a huge Giants fan. And over the weekend, well, actually Thursday, I think, the Giants lost to the Dodgers and were eliminated in the baseball playoffs on a very controversial call. In that, the play was not reviewable. And the Giants were eliminated after winning 107 games, right? So it's one thing if we're talking La Liga VAR where it's a moment here, but when you get eliminated from the playoffs when a play cannot be reviewed, I have a big problem with that. I just don't understand why some plays are reviewable and not others. I believe all plays should be reviewable. I mean, why not? You have the replay, you should be able to look at it. And what happened was in the baseball match or in the baseball game, the player did a check swing. It didn't go all the way through, went to the first base umpire. He called him out. Series over. And of course, the Giants tried to get it reviewed. It was unreviewable. In last night's match, the referee did not review the play. Now, he's saying that he was right there in the moment. And obviously, in real time, it looked like a penalty. But after review, you saw that the Valencia player got to the ball first. And obviously, the collision of the action with Ansu looked like a clear penalty in real time. So there's just one of these things is like, you know, in real time, what did the referee see? What was the moment? And obviously in VAR, if you see the replay, it looks a little bit ambiguous. I want to put some of the decision-making of VAR back to the teams because, again, when they do the interviews after the match, especially in last night's match, they interviewed Gaia from Valencia and they ask him, why wasn't the play reviewed under VAR? And it's like, he has no idea because the referee didn't give an explanation. I just want accountability, especially when we have all this technology for VAR. So here's kind of my things that I would do to make VAR just more accountable so there'd be less polemica. And obviously getting the calls right. I mean, that's really what we want. If we're going to use VAR, let's use VAR, but let's not do it 50%. So number one, there needs to be a time limit, right? A 2-minute time limit counter, just watch replay 2 minutes or less. Yeah, done. The next thing, I think this is super important. Each team should be allowed one replay, like in the NFL. Throw the flag, you get that one moment to take a look at the replay, and the referee has to look at the VAR. That's it, done. That will help alleviate any of this controversy that always happens at the end of matches where people think La Liga is rigged, especially when it comes to playing the Clásico with Madrid and them getting more penalties than other teams. This gives each team one chance to get a call reviewed, and I think that would be huge. The next thing, and this is massive, every play is reviewable under VAR. Doesn't matter, throw in, free kick, foul, whatever. As long as the team has their one review available, they can throw the flag, it gets reviewed. Now this brings me to the other thing. The VAR refs need to help the ref. They need to see the replay. They have the opportunity to see the replay and to buzz the ref to make the call. It's this weird idea here that the VAR refs are showing up the referee by buzzing him. I don't understand this mentality. It's so weird. The VAR ref sees something that the ref on the field can't see. He should buzz and say, take a look at this. Again, with the 2-minute time limit, I don't think there's going to be that many stops in time. Now I'm talking major moments, right? I'm not talking like every little play here and there. It's a collaboration. The VAR refs need to work together with the ref, get the call right. We have VAR. We have this technology. We're able to see offside within 2 centimeters of the line, right? So let's make use of all this technology and make the correct calls. With these changes, this will help give teams more control of VAR and hopefully lead to more correct calls, less polemica, and everyone's a bit happier with their end result. Before I get to my chat with Craig. Just wanted to do a quick Barca Talk announcement. We made a huge improvement to the website. Go to barcatalk.net. Now you can follow the show on your favorite podcast app. You can leave a voicemail for the show, and I will try to play it as often as I can if you have some good takes. You can read past reviews, and you can also leave a review for the show. You can also sign up for the weekly newsletter there. It looks great on mobile. It's super fast. And obviously you can sign up for our Patreon community, all there in one spot. So take a look, visit the website. I really look forward to having more interaction with the fans, especially with the voice note option. I think that's really cool. And really soon we're going to be adding a merch shop so we can have more products, Barca Talk products that you can buy to help support the podcast. Now, after the break, I speak to Craig about the joy Ansu brought to the Camp Nou last night. Well, as you know, I was in Barcelona last weekend, and it was awesome to move around the city because it was the first time I've been out of kind of Madrid really, since the pandemic, and it was really good to get out and to obviously visit the stadium. Unfortunately, I couldn't stay for the game because I had a prior engagement for Saturday night. But what do you miss about Barcelona and the city when you go to travel? Do you have like a certain spot you like to go? Obviously, besides the stadium, but I mean, do you have like specific restaurants or specific sites you like to check out when you go visit Barcelona?
Yeah, it's Park Güell for me. I always say to people that Park Güell's my happy place. It's just perfect. That view from up the top across the city, like that's when I know I'm on holiday. Obviously, because Barcelona is a city that we visit rather than live in. Certainly, me and you.
Sure.
That's when it's like downtime, Whereas the rest of the city I love. Don't get me wrong. And the other thing, weirdly, I really really love seeing señoras hanging from balconies. That's a real. I don't know if anyone's ever visited Scotland, but there's when you kind of get over the border from England to Scotland and you start seeing mountains and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I get this. I'm in Scotland now. That's my equivalent to Barcelona is señoras hanging from balconies. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's really the just the outdoor seating. I hadn't seen that because I had heard reports in Barcelona there was still capacity restrictions and so forth. But what I saw, everything looked back to normal for the most part. And to me, that really showed me, that Spain is kind of on the right track, obviously, because everywhere you go, there's just outdoor seating. But I would agree, Park Güell is definitely another site. And also Sagrada Familia, because I didn't go this time inside of it. But when I was recording with Mariana, I was able to meet her in person finally, which was great. We recorded really near the Sagrada Familia. That's still just an awe-inspiring, just monument and point of interest in Barcelona. So seeing that as well, and it's coming together, especially I hadn't seen it in 3 years. So just see the progress that's been made is pretty awesome. But let's get into the match last night. We had definitely some more positive vibes than we had in the last couple of weeks. And obviously we got to start off with Ansu Fati. Ansu Fati gets the start, and obviously with the early goal being allowed, but man, Ansu Fati, he definitely changes the direction, the arc of this team all of a sudden. And we have a complicated this week with Dynamo Kiev in the Champions League and obviously in the Clásico. But, man, those good feelings are coming back, especially when Ansu Fati starts. Yeah,
I've always thought to myself, one of the signs of a great player is if you make players around you better. And he does that for such a young kid, a bit harsh maybe, but, for such a young player.
Sure.
His ability to make, Memphis Depay looks like Memphis Depay when Fati's near him. Memphis Depay looks like any other striker when Luke de Jong's near him, and that's not Depay's fault. But Messi, I've done a Laporta there. That's a slip of the tongue. But yeah, Fati has the same quality Messi has, which is that his work makes others better, and he's exciting, and defenders hate playing against him, and he's quick, and he gets into spaces, and it's so exciting to watch. We're so lucky to have him.
Yeah, last night he played 60 minutes and obviously scored the goal and created the penalty that Memphis obviously converted. But like you said, it's one of those things that maybe I always knew Ansu was good. But again, last night I think maybe just re-emphasize how really great he is, not just good, right? The movement that he has, the touch, but also, like you said, making Memphis better, especially on that first goal, that kind of give and go where Memphis just laid it, and the finish by Ansu Fati. Let me just give you a stat here. Conversion rate for Ansu, 68%. 11 of his last 16 shots have been goals.
That's insane.
Isn't that insane?
If you look at where he's shooting from as well,
exactly.
he's not doing 6-yard tap-ins.
Exactly. That's the thing, right? You pointed on the head. Not only is it obviously an amazing conversion number, but also just the angles, right? You're going to have more shots that may go wide and more shots that are going to be blocked just because, especially when you come down the angle, you're trying to adjust, right? Especially in the early of the game, you're trying to see how you do it. But 11 and 16, that's incredible.
What's Coutinho's? Because they shoot from similar places a lot of the time.
Yeah, I can look that up. But that's not again, it's not good. I bet you it's probably in the 2s, something like that, right? But again, I guess, just like I have here in my doc, like the arc of the season is completely, on Ansu's shoulders. Not only is it this season, but also with the contract renegotiation that's kind of hit a stalemate now, obviously. It really is showing how important it is because now Barca just has to focus on one thing on the defense, but now they're attacking, especially with Aguero coming. He got some minutes last night, but again, Ansu's playmaking and his ability to hold the ball to me is super vital to this team and its success this season.
Without doubt, like the best form of defense is attack, right? And I bang this drum all the time, and listeners are probably sick of hearing me say it. But we've got, if we've got questions in defense, right? Well, don't put them under pressure. Then let's keep the ball. Let's make it exciting. Let's score goals, which is so simplistic, but he gives us that. And I was quite skeptical is the wrong word. I was cautious. That's a better word. I was cautious last season about Fati. I was like, let's wait and see. We've been here before so many times. I think you have to write that off now. I think we're now in the realms of Fati is not just potential superstar. He's superstar in waiting. He's taken the next step. I think a big Clásico, and without going right to the end of the pod, a big Clásico really propels him into a sphere that we probably don't deserve to be in terms of having someone of his quality with how badly ran the club's been. But he just links everything together. Like, how could you not love playing with him? And as fans, when all we've been crying out for is just that if we need to rebuild fans, but at least make it fun, he gives us all of that. He's so far ahead of his years. His link-up play, his finishing, his pace. Like, I even see him work back. Like, he grafts for his team. Like, I'm struggling, other than the physical elements that he can't offset biologically, I struggle to see flaws within him, and even his intelligence is ahead of his years. He's a superstar. He's already a superstar.
Yeah, it's a good point. And, I was on Twitter last night. People were clamoring, why doesn't Vinicius get the same kind of glory with this, as Ansu was being praised last night. But that's really the big thing. If we look at Vinicius for Madrid and Ansu for Barcelona, the biggest difference is the conversion rate of Ansu, right? Mm-hmm. I would say. And that, like you said, with the Clásico coming up, that's where legends are made, right? If Ansu has a great performance, that's just going to elevate him even more. Like you said, I think, whenever you see in any sport, right, a young protege or talent come out, mm-hmm. It's not only the physical gifts, it's the mental, right? It's the ability to have the IQ and the seemingly experience of a veteran at such a young age, right? And you pointed out perfectly, because Ansu, like, he knows when he has to take a 1v1 or when to pass it off, and it just seems so seamless. Whereas younger players just make those mistakes of, like, always trying to do 1v1s, right? Trying to be the one. And last night you saw that Ansu is, far, ahead of his time, especially at his age. I mean, just think about, like, when I think about when I was playing, to have the experience of what I was at 28, at 18, right? Just knowing pace of play, moments, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And Ansu just seems to have that figured out. Now, last night, Koeman went with a bit of a change last night with the formation. He went with the 4-3-3, but more importantly, he put Sergio Roberto right back and put Sergio Dest on the right wing. Obviously, people were clamoring on social media about how good Dest was playing. And I just obviously think he didn't have to worry about defense, so he can just kind of take those 1v1. Some people have responded to me on Twitter. What do you think, instead of putting Dest at right wing, to put Demir and then put Mingueza at right back to solidify the defense? Would that make you feel better defensively having Mingueza, or you still want Sergio Roberto on the lineup in some form?
I think the question comes back to who we're playing, right? And I remember the last Clásico, me and you had a debate around, I'm sure it was the last Clásico, it was certainly a big game. And you were like, who do you play at right back? And I said, I play Sergio Roberto every day of the week, even though I think he's the worst player. And it was between him and Dest. And you said, why? And I said, because it's experience. It's about being in the big occasion. My concern with playing them two down a flank is that if they both, for whatever reason, capitulate to the pressure, which they very well might do, you've lost an entire side of the field there. I think you can put one in and not the other. So I think you could put Demir in front of Sergio Roberto. I think you can put Mingueza behind someone else.
Sure.
Naturally, we're now getting the realms of behind who, right? Which I get that. Yeah. I think if you do it, there's lots of logic, but if you do it, what you can't have then is the Twitter warriors saying, I can't believe that we've done this. Koeman's a fraud. How has he let these players get put under this much pressure? Like, there's a massive risk there. It's potentially risk reward. And I think they're both individually players I really, really like. But that's risky. And I think for me, I probably wouldn't be as open to that as others. And I think there's more logic in putting Mingueza in there than there is Demir. But I wouldn't do both.
Yeah, it's a good point. I like what you said. I would go with Mingueza and then also Sergio Roberto at right wing. I think that, like you said, it's an interesting point to you do not want to give the right side. But I just think, as we've seen again, another early goal I know was a golazo on a set play, this type of thing. But again, inside 10 minutes, we're talking against Benfica, Granada, these type of trends where you have to solidify. And I just think Mingueza is just a better defender on that right back. He doesn't have to go all the way up. And especially if you want Sergio Roberto to give you some more possession on that right side, and obviously he's not as dynamic, fast, on the right as Dest, but I think he's overall a better midfielder. Because one thing Dest, he did have some good plays. As we just talked about Ansu having the veteran savvy, I think Dest still lacks that. A couple times when he should have pulled back, he goes forward. When he should have gone forward, he pulls back. So it's still trying to find the footing against this. I remember one time he had a heavy touch here. So it's like all these little things where I don't think Sergio Roberto does that. Now, especially with this big match coming at Dinamo Kiev, do you use the same lineup, putting Dest? Do you think Koeman goes with the same lineup, putting Dest up top and Sergio Roberto on the right back?
Yeah, I think against Dynamo Kiev, I think you do, because we should be able to beat them. So I think there's less risk there, and I think we should be in a position where we can, if it's not working, we can change it without any drastic negatives. We're at home; it's a big pitch. We should be all right. So I think for Dynamo Kiev, absolutely. For the Clásico, it's slightly different. And on the Dest point, you used a really good word there. You said, we need someone who's more dynamic than Sergio Roberto, and I think that's a good point. My worry with Dest is that it's not dynamism; it's actually he's quite erratic. And when that works, it's amazing. It's kind of like having a cocker spaniel in the house. Like, when they're fun, they're amazing. When they're not fun, they're just annoying. Like, they just won't shut up and won't stay still. And I think that's kind of where Dest is. When it works, it's brilliant. When it doesn't, you really, really get found out. So I would against Kiev. I wouldn't against Madrid.
Yeah, it's a good point. And that, you can see just by having Ansu on the left side, now the team can just focus on the right side, right? Which it just seems to be, I don't know, for me from afar, it just looks like an easier fix where I'm just not as worried, because now all of a sudden the other team has to worry about Ansu and Memphis, because now all of a sudden Memphis becomes more lethal with the link-up play with Ansu. Now, let's talk about the midfield a little bit. Obviously, I think it was a better performance than they've had recently. Obviously, with Busquets coming back from international break, usually the team usually has a lull after international break. Last night didn't seem like that. I really think it comes down to two things. I think Gavi being inserted into the starting 11 and becoming more of an important, impactful midfielder, but also that helps De Jong, because there were some moments last night, Craig, where I saw the De Jong of Ajax, where he was taking those long runs 1v1, and the defense didn't know how to stop him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And there was shades of, and please don't twist this in terms of, I'm not saying these players are like for like, right? 'Cause I'm aware how this might sound. There was shades of Xavi and Iniesta for me last night, in the sense of Iniesta would be so, I'm going to use the same word again that you used, so dynamic, and he would be back and forward, making things happen. I think we saw that with De Jong yesterday. And for me, the thing that always struck me about watching Xavi play, that he was always in the right area, always doing something that was often quite simple. I'm not saying that Xavi was a simple player, because he would create passes and stuff that were mind-blowing, but, Xavi was an incredible link player for us, always in and around the area you needed to be. And I think we saw it yesterday, in the sense of they played their requisite roles to perfection. And not just, we said this before, it frees Busquets up to not worry about trying to replicate bits of those two players that he just can't do. Going back to the, Ansu will have faults and there are things he can't do much about. Busquets is not going to find a yard of pace from somewhere at this stage of his career. He's not going to make a lung-busting box-to-box. He's not going to be able to be in and around every bit of play that's going on. But now he doesn't have to. So I just think it looked a lot more controlled and structured. It almost looked like there was some thought put into it, which I'm giving a bit too much credit for. But, it just looked inherently sensible, which is a bizarre thing to say. But, you looked at the midfield and you thought, it's working. It's working well.
Yeah, for sure. And that the thing too I look at is, maybe I'm more critical of this, but I still want to see more movement from De Jong finding those spaces, because there's a couple times in the first half. I mean, I noticed it in our WhatsApp group and stuff. I said I hadn't really looked at the clock that much in the first half because the flow of the game was much better, but there were still moments where I just don't see De Jong being active to go receive the ball, and I want to see a little bit more of that. But also with Gavi, like you said, just having the link up play for that. Maybe this is a partnership that now can unlock De Jong, because as we always talked about, we want to see the De Jong of Ajax, where he's taking these balls coast to coast on the counters and really putting the defense on the back foot. Let me give you some stats for Gavi last night. 72 minutes played. Obviously, he may have just kind of got a little tired because he was on international break. Obviously, 91 pass accuracy, which was awesome. And then obviously 56% successful plays. And again, the only thing I have here in my notes is there isn't a yellow card he doesn't like, right? So he's had a bunch of yellow cards already to his early career. The next one in La Liga, he'll have a suspension, so he has to be careful with that in the Clásico. But again, as we've always talked about at the beginning of the season, these players from La Masia are so important to bridge the gap. I mean, we're seeing it with Gavi, with Nico, Demir, Mingueza, Araujo, all these players, and I love it. It gets me excited to watch these matches, especially last night.
Yeah, 100%. And I think on the yellow cards, there's good and bad yellow cards, isn't there? You know that you've played, and Busquets was a master at the good yellow card, where it was a case of the reason that we could have players play so high up and press so much was because if it got to the point where we would get overrun, Busquets would just side someone down and pull a shirt or whatever. And my gut feeling, don't get me wrong, I've not gone back and researched all of these yellow cards, but my gut feeling is that that's the yellow cards that Gavi's taking. It's the ones where it's like you can let that player go past you, but then you're putting your aging centre half in Piqué under a bit of pressure, so just take it. And if that's what he builds his career on, it didn't do any harm for Sergio Busquets. He actually freed up a lot of players. Then there's bad yellow cards. The Dani Alves of the world, who would just, get a yellow card for throwing a ball down because a throwing went against you and you just don't understand it. So I think Gavi, in my mind, that doesn't concern me. I think some of them are sort of quote unquote professional yellow cards. The legs thing, we need to make sure we protect these players. But I'm with you. Like, if we look at the youngsters that we've had to unearth this season, there's so much interest from me about what these guys are going to go on to. And, the fact that we've lost Elijah Mariba, and I've barely given it a second's thought.
Yeah.
It just shows what these guys that have come in have done. And I think it's a big if they can go and perform at the weekend, the springboard that gives us for this season is amazing. And, Laporta's saying all the right things. We have to invest in La Masia. Yeah, of course we do. It feels like they are actually putting their money where their mouth is in that sense, though.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like you said, that's, especially if we were looking before the international break, it was kind of doom and gloom a little bit, not a little bit, but a lot of just the performance, trying to get out of Champions League group stage, it was kind of, and now I look at the team, especially it all just goes around Ansu Fati. He changes everything about this team, because now we're not all dependent on Depay, and we don't have to use Luke de Jong. Right, we don't have to do 70 crosses and all these things. It's just a chain reaction to all these things. But again, it's a revelation that Koeman is using Gavi and Nico as much as he is, as we've been clamoring for him to do that. Last couple of things before we end here. Another early goal. Let's talk about the defense a little bit. I don't think Piqué had his best match. Alba still worries me about. Sometimes he just looks disinterested. There's moments where the way he looks like he's playing Sunday rec league sometimes when he's trying to clear the ball out of the box. It's just kind of like, what? And I don't know if it's just attitude of the defensive back line. And again, it just frustrates me because it's such just go back to basics type of thing where they're just not doing it. If anything, especially this week is very complicated with Kiev and Madrid, they cannot allow or concede an early goal again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a difficult one because in my head, which is clearly not reality, right? But in my head, it's like if you're a defender, when I was playing, it was the first 10 minutes, keep it tight. Just keep it tight. Just be sensible, be in position, keep your line level, make sure that we're controlled. And the goals that we give away just seem to be completely avoidable. We're not conceding 30-yard wonder strikes. We're conceding sloppy goals, often from set pieces. And that has to be stemming from what's happening in the dressing room before we go out. It has to be either a lack of motivation, it has to be mixed messages, or it has to be a lack of prep. Because it's just unusual to concede so many goals so early from set pieces. And so there has to be something systemic in that. And I don't understand how, in an organisation full of players as good as they are, with coaches in theory as good as they are, how that happens. It's a real mind boggler for me.
It is.
But it's not good enough. And to me, we've got to switch on more. It feels like we've got players now who grow into the game, and that's fine if you're a striker, but it's not fine if you're a defender. You should be able to do your job, and and it's second balls a lot, and it's such basic Sunday league stuff.
That is a great term that you said. Grow into the game, right? You took the word. I was about to say that, because you cannot have that as a defense, right? You have to be alert at minute 1, and just go, right? I'm kind of now want the defense to be more aggressive. Be like, for example, I want to see Eric Garcia get in someone's face. Like, I want to see him guard up, as opposed to allowing the space and allowing the attacker to make a move and try to take a shot on. I think it's more beneficial for our defense, because having that mentality will keep them more alert. Because I think, again, with PK's performance last night, Alba's performance last night, it just seems like a daze. Like, they're just kind of walking through. And like you said, they grow into the game. After we tied the game, it was a different game. But imagine if we don't tie as soon, right? Imagine if it's 20, 25 minutes and the other team has better strikers, like Madrid, for example. You just can't play this dance, right?
Yeah.
Now, we have a complicated, obviously these matches are going to be at home against Kiev and Madrid, but man, it's Clásico week as well. I'm grateful that Barcelona were able to play over the weekend, because Madrid weren't. Their first match is going to be champions after international break. What kind of concerns you about this week? What are you going to be looking for, especially against the Kiev? Do you see Kiev as more? I mean, the Kiev match is super important. We need to get 3 points, so we can't just have it as a scrimmage game.
Yeah. My concern for Kiev would just be injuries and tiredness. I don't, famous last words, I don't foresee any issues in that game. That should be, Champions League. There's no easy games necessarily, but it shouldn't be one that we are concerned about. If we're concerned about that game, then maybe that shows where we are as a club, and I don't think we're quite there yet. So that one doesn't concern me. I think that's about rotation. There's certain players that I think I wouldn't give time to. So, for example, contrary to what we just said, I wouldn't play Ansu Fati. I certainly wouldn't start him. Let's put it that way. I'd like to think that the players who think they should be at this club, Luke de Jong, etc., go and prove yourself. We've had this chat before about other players. You want to be here, Brathwaite. We said it about who did we have last year in our group? And we said if you can't do it against this team, then you can't do it at Barcelona. Can't remember who it was. I think he went to score that game actually.
Eastern European X. Go.
Yeah, that was it. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was Ferencváros.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, you can't do it against them. You shouldn't be here. So I think I would rest players. Now my concern would be fitness. We should win that game. My concerns for the Clásico, I don't have any, and that's not from a position of optimism. It's from a position of I genuinely don't know what we're going to get. I don't know what Madrid we're going to get. I don't know what we're going to do. I wouldn't say I'm not bothered, because of course I am. It's the biggest game of the season, and it hurts if we lose against them. The only team I dislike losing to more is Espanyol. But I'm almost in a let's wait and see mentality. I don't think it makes or breaks the season for either me or the club. And I don't think we can accurately predict what we're going to get from both teams. So I'm almost excited about it, because it feels like one of the few Clásicos in a long time where it's like, who knows what's going to happen here? If you were betting on it, I don't know where to start. So I'm just sit and watch it is my mentality, and we'll see what will be. It's a strange week.
It is.
What's your take?
Well, I want to see Ansu start. I just think
against
he's ready.
Kiev.
Yeah, I think if he's ready, you ride him and ride the momentum. I think this is a moment. It feels like a moment already in his early career that he could, I'm not saying he'll have a hat trick against Madrid in his first Clásico Messi style, but if he scores, it's a moment of legend making, it's like that type of thing. And I really think I feel more confident about Barcelona going into this Clásico than I did 3 weeks ago, especially before the international break. And like you said, the Madrid team, we don't know what they're going to get. Are you going to get a Hazard who's going to be able to play? Is Vinicius going to come out and do something? Is your favorite striker Benzema going to have the Benzema game in the Clásico?
Let's not go down this path again. We've already debunked this myth a million times. That would be my overriding concern, is that defensively, Benzema should have us on post. Like he is the best out and out striker. Now I'm deliberately using the word out and out striker rather than attacker. He's the best out and out striker in the Liga by a distance. maybe top 2 in Europe at the minute in my eyes. That's my biggest concern. If we stop Benzema, we stop Madrid. Would be my guess. He's the one player that I look at on that team sheet and think, Christ, I don't know what we're going to do here, because he's in great form. He's a brilliant player, and we've looked ropey.
And this is the thing, is that as we talked about just a minute ago about the defense, if we are grabbing, if we are aggressive defensively, I think then we can kind of negate Benzema's comfortability to find his hole in there. But I feel against PK and so forth that Benzema is not even worried about Barca's defense. He knows that he's going to be able to find holes and passing lanes like nobody's business.
That's it.
So
if I was Benzema, it's almost like if you're right. So I'm sorry that we often turn this into an NFL show as well. But if you're Derrick Henry and you see a rookie left tackle, you're like, well, that's where I'm running. And I feel like if I'm Benzema, I look at Eric Garcia and I think, well, okay. Eric Garcia's a great player. I'm not saying he's not. He's settling into the team now. But I'm looking at him thinking, well, let's see what you've got. I'm going to avoid PK. I'm going to target Eric Garcia, and I'm going to make him foul me. Go back to your point. Or I'm just going to beat him. I'm going to beat him with my head. I'm going to be a bit more clever, a bit more savvy, a bit more wily than Garcia. And I think that's what I'd do if I was Benzema. And that's kind of where I think we need to win that battle. I would play Garcia. I wouldn't be like, well, stick Longley in there, he's more experienced, or whatever. I wouldn't try and be too clever with this. I would just say to Garcia, you need to go on, you need to go on your stripes in this game. We need a big performance from you. And I think if we do that, then life will be significantly better than it could be. But Benzema's the challenge. It's their best player against our worst area.
Yeah, exactly. And 2 things about the matches coming up. They're both early start times. So the Champions League is 6:45, which is kind of a rarity for Barcelona. They're usually playing at 9. And the vaunted Saturday 4:00 time, as we always talk about, is siesta time in here in Spain. So we'll see how they get up for that.
Craig, do you want to hear a really emotional story?
Go on.
So me, my beautiful wife, and my amazing son are going on our first little post-COVID trip over the weekend. We're going to Edinburgh, back to the motherland. So I won't see the game, because I'll be wandering around a castle or something, so I won't see it.
Well, you'll definitely
hear prayers, please.
You'll definitely hear the feedback in our WhatsApp group. So there you go. You can find in that. Well, Craig, thanks for joining me. We'll talk soon. Obviously, get your opinions in the coming weeks, and we'll kind of gauge our temperature again. I just feel like in the last 2 episodes we've done, we've been cold, and now we're kind of really looking optimistic, which is great.
It's trending.
Yeah, it's definitely trending up, especially it's all Ansu. I mean, that's really what it really comes down to. So thanks for listening. Until next time, Forza Barca.